Hello everyone. Thought I'd do a quick posting today on something that triggered me off yesterday. My son came in from work and he said, "Dad, do you want this magazine? I found it discarded on the floor in one of our blocks of flats that we clean." So I said, "Yeah, go on then. I'll have a quick read and just keep up to date with the latest rhetoric." And anyway, he gave me the magazine. I said, "Actually, Matt, it's not one magazine, it's two. It just feels like it's one. And even when they're both joined together, it still doesn't feel like one of the original Watchtowers that I used to read." But there you go. They've become almost leaflet-like now. In fact, they are basically leaflets. But that's another story. So what I did, I had a quick browse through, and do you know what? When you actually go through these things now, as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and after everything we've been through and the research you do, the longer you're out, and if you're keen enough to do it and you want to learn more about the rancid mess that you came from, you do your research, you do your historical research, you just go for it. And it's like a new found freedom of picking up as much information as you can from as many people as you can, and as many authorized versions of areas of the history of the Watchtower, including its presidents, its false doctrines and everything. You know the stuff. But as you're going through this stuff, when you pick up one of these now, fully enlightened, shall we say, you start to be able to pick holes in every single page of these so-called documents, the so-called wise words that have come from God, as they would claim. But as you go through them, there are half-truths, there are mistruths in there, there's misquotes, there's hypocrisy, and blatant lies in some cases. So I always look at this stuff with a great deal of cynicism anyway, and it's not very often these days that I pick up one of these magazines and actually find anything of interest that I'd even want to share with the community out there, and indeed all those that are just trying to wake up and recover, because there are a lot of people watching our channels and everybody else's channels out there who are soaking things up now and are looking to wake up completely and conclusively and start to research the stuff that they've been fed for so long. But on page 15, the back page of this particular Watchtower, about how does it do any good to pray, but on the back page it's talking about forgiving freely. Now, as soon as I hear the word forgive and Watchtower, the next word that comes into my mind is shunning, and it's call me a cynic, but they're talking here about their wisdom about freely forgiving others. And at the same time, as we all know, I think, was it a 2011 magazine where it talks about the mentally diseased, which is all of Eslot, to not even talk to them, don't text them, don't do anything with them, don't greet them in the street, shun them completely. Have nothing to do with these people. Absolutely nothing. It's another debate, talking about the misapplied scriptures that they use to basically validate why they shun people. But let's just stick to the simplicity of the word shunning and the fact that they do shun actively. They use it as a weapon within families, between wives and husbands, children, uncles, aunties, grandmothers. Shunning is a very serious and very insidious and evil weapon that to the outside world can't really see. But to us that have left the cult and those that are in the cult, you either shun or you are being shunned. That is a fact of life. So shunning is very, very serious, and it has massive implications for many people. Indeed, many people have sadly taken their lives as a result of being shunned. It's murderous. It's blood guilty upon the governing body, and they know, as well as we do, that if they were to relax the shunning doctrine, completely relax it, I beg to differ on how many people would stay Jehovah's Witnesses. I think that the vast majority, 2/3, would be drifting away within 2 to 5 years. You'd have a lot of people leave. That's just my prediction. So there's no way they're ever going to get rid of shunning. And therefore, when I come back to this document, if you can call it that, of these wise words from God, because that's what they claim these are in here, they're talking about freely forgiving. Anyway, let's go down halfway and start reading these pearls of wisdom, shall we, on this page 15. And here we go, and I quote, "Is it practical today to forgive? As imperfect humans, we all sin. Hence we are wise to be inclined to forgive others, for sooner or later we will need to have others forgive us. Moreover, when we choose to forgive, we also benefit ourselves." How so? That sounds quite reasonable. I can't see anything wrong with that. You could use that in everyday practical life. You don't have to be a Jehovah's Witness to know that. That just makes perfect sense. So let's go on to the next bit. When we harbour anger and resentment and withhold forgiveness, we hurt ourselves. Such negative emotions can rob us of happiness. It can restrict our life, and it makes us miserable. Wow. So on the one hand, they're saying that it does benefit us to forgive. I am fully in support of that. And so is any right-thinking, intuitive person. That there are many benefits to be had from just moving on and forgiving people. Not a problem with that. Because as they said, it robs you of your happiness, it restricts your life, and it makes us miserable. Okay. Then why don't they do that with the shunning issue? Because this is even bigger. This is large. This is very serious. This is an endemic poison that runs through Watchtower, through the publishers, through the members, that they shun. They are encouraged to shun. And if they don't shun, they're punished themselves for not shunning. It's that serious. But let's go on to what it says next. They can also pose a serious health risk. A report in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology by Dr. Yoichi Chida and Professor of Psychology Andrew Steptoe concluded the current findings suggest a harmful association between anger and hostility and coronary heart disease. Coronary heart disease, CHD, by harbouring anger and hostility. It's a shame that Watchtower won't take a piece of its own information to heart there and actually follow that through, because if they were to follow that through, they would probably be a lot healthier in themselves. It's no wonder that many Jehovah's Witnesses are miserable. It's no wonder many of them feel robbed. It's no wonder that many of them are on pills. It's no wonder many of them take to drink. It's no wonder many of them self-harm. It's no wonder many of them are clinically depressed. It's no wonder that they've been robbed of life. Because many of the things that they're asked to do are not conducive to a happy lifestyle. And one of the most serious things that men in New York can do to other human beings is to command those human beings to shun their loved ones, to shun their friends, to harbour that grievance, to harbour that resentment, and to, and I quote them, to even hate those people, to see them as dead already. So when you're actually in that mindset of doing those things, when you're there doing those things, then I would totally agree with what it's saying there. that harbouring the anger and the resentment will mean that you're hurting yourself. That it does restrict your life and it does make you miserable because it's unnatural. None of us want to hate. None of us want to get into that position where we're isolating people to such a degree that we would allow them to fall ill. And what this is also saying is if you are doing those things, you will fall into that category. I know of many people in our own area that drink too much, that are, if they were honest, are not happy, that they've been robbed of truly expressing themselves and being the true people that they really are because of the restriction placed around them. And that harbouring of resentment and anger is very real, not just in shunning, but in lots of other ways between each other within the congregations. I watched today a video by Karl, who's done a couple of videos now, Karl, and I'll put the link on there. And he's just done another video at the end of November, and it's called Shunning, How Jehovah's Witnesses Treat You If You Dare to Leave. Now, what Karl has done there, and I would strongly recommend that you go and watch it, because he's sat outside the Kingdom Hall, he's got the video camera on himself like I am doing now, and he's talking about shunning. And it's about 40 minutes long, it's quite long, but bear with it, go with the video, because by the end of it you'll be laughing along with him, and a number of the incidents that happen along the way, with the scared little rabbits as they're looking out the Kingdom Hall door and shutting it, and there's a very special moment round about 28 minutes in that I won't spoil it for you, but it's well worth a listen. And all I want to say is well done, Karl. But the reason I mention Karl in this video, and the whole issue of this, what I'm talking about now with resentment, is that Karl brings out a very important point in his video. And whether or not he meant to do it, who knows it? I think it just came out of Karl naturally, a lot of it. And I thank you, Karl, for this, because I learnt something from this. Was that those that are being shunned, and there are millions of them all over the world, being shunned and are finding it very difficult to cope with this shunning. And I'm not going to trivialize this. This is a very serious crime. I believe it's a crime against individuals when people go through this hate against them. It is a hate crime. And you know, you could argue that this is also against the law to do this. But what Karl is talking about here is he's saying, I'm being shunned as a person. I'm now sat outside this Kingdom Hall, and he was waiting for the meeting to finish. But what Karl does, he talks about fun, laughter. He talks about trivializing it. He talks about the fact that he's now got a perspective on this, a perspective on the shunning that's happening to him. So all of that negative equity that they're trying to place on him by saying that you are no longer a human being, you do not deserve to have our grace anymore, is actually, when he's looked at it and put the right perspective on it, he's able to laugh about it and see how ridiculous the whole thing is. And because he's able to do that, he then proves to himself that he's not under their rules. He doesn't come under their rules. So if they want to follow this rule, it's a rule that they are harbouring for themselves. So he can look at them in a supermarket, or he can look at them when they're coming out the hall and smile and say hello, because he's not under their rules. He's risen himself above all of that. And when he's seeing the opposite to the politeness that he's showing them, as he said, he's not going to break the law, he's not going to do anything that would be seen as anything other than being natural towards his fellow man. Hello, how are you? But when they don't return that, he's making it very clear he's not under their rules. So all of that negativity bounces straight back at them. at the witnesses. And so they do continue to harbour resentment, anger. They do start to feel unwell. Because this isn't right, folks. Nothing good will come from this for these people who continue to actively shun, thinking that this is something that the Almighty God wants them to do. It's absurd. It's an absolute nonsense. But it is a very serious weapon used by a man-made religion that is a formalized, confirmed cult. So thank you, Karl. Karl, you really brought that out really well for us, and I thank you, because I learned something from that. And I have laughed myself personally, but it's great to see you doing it naturally on this video and showing the absurd situation of the door being open like scared rabbits, and the other thing that I won't mention because I'll let people watch the video and get that surprise for themselves, that little gem halfway through. Absolute classic. And yes, it's good to laugh. If you are being shunned and you're going through hell because of this, and it's destroying you inside, without trivializing it, we understand what that means to be shunned. And believe me, it's awful. But if you can start to turn that around, to start using that negativity and put the force back where it belongs. It does not belong to you. Nobody deserves to be shunned like that. And so when you can pass that straight back like a mirror, boom, imagine that you have that mirror in front of you and you've turned it around and you've shone it straight back at them. You're making it very clear to them that you're not under their rules, that this no longer affects you, that you are prepared to say hello and smile at them as you're walking past with your shopping trolley in the supermarket. You can do that thing now. Have the courage to do it. Don't whimper into a corner. Don't hide in the shadows. You've got nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing at all. It's time for you to take control of yourself. And Karl's video actually does that really well. I wanted to show the contrast with that particular magazine because it really did highlight the fact that although they recognise that this is bad for people's health to resent others and not to forgive, when it comes to the whole issue of shunning, that's exactly what they do. So really that advice really means nothing. It's pointless advice to witnesses, because they will be reading that and they will say, well, Mark, you're not looking at it in the right perspective. We freely forgive each other all of the time. Really? Really? Can you honestly say that you're freely forgiving? I think not. Not while you've got the active weapon of shunning. Not when people are killing themselves all of the time, all over the world, because they can't cope anymore with the shunning that takes place. So new methods are needed, and it sounds to me that there are more and more coming out now on video on YouTube and sharing their experiences about how things are going. We are one big vast apostate army. If you want to call us apostates, well, I could argue the toss about what that actually means, but yeah, let's go with it. It's the VAA. There are many of us out here, all of different belief systems, non-beliefs, and we love each other accordingly. We've all got one thing in common, and that is we have a complete mistrust, a dislike, and even a hatred for the Watchtower and the things it's doing to people. How dare they do that? And it's wonderful to see all these new voices coming out all over the place and speaking up. It makes a wonderful, colourful mosaic for us all to be a part of that. And from that, individuals that turn on the computer for the first time and start to, what am I going through? Why am I being shunned like this? Are there others out there that are in my position? So when they see all of this colourful array of experiences from different backgrounds and different walks of life, all saying basically generically the same thing, that they are being shunned and this is how I'm handling it, or this is the way that I see it, that information is extremely valuable and maybe even life-saving for some people. In fact, I know it has been life-saving for many. So we're all helping each other, and I just wanted to say what I've said, really. I think I've run out of words, and thank you for listening, and Watchtower, it would be great if you could just take some of your own advice. Bye for now.